Welcome to Hermit Woods, where there's a story in every bottle.
All right, guys, we are live again.
Live?
Monday.
We're live?
Yes.
It's
Hello
so
out there.
good to be alive. I love being alive.
Let me turn the
I
banner
thought this
off
was
here.
the Matrix all over again.
Well, it could
Or
be.
Groundhog Day.
It could be.
Something. I think I've lived
It
this
feels like
this
I was
moment.
here just about 7 days ago.
Oh yeah,
Almost precisely.
Another Monday, I
Yeah.
think.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah. I think we
Wow.
we drank.
Do you think everybody's going to get bored of seeing us every Monday?
I think so. I'm
It
bored
could
of seeing
be.
this, yeah.
I'm not bored of drinking with you guys.
I know, well, it
that.
doesn't really
It's
matter.
always different and always fun. So,
I just don't remember what
you
we
know.
had, so it's always a new adventure.
Yeah.
and this time we're fortifying it.
Yes. So before we get into that, we just have a couple people that have joined us so far.
Great.
So we want to give another moment or two for some people to come on. Hello, if you have joined us, and we'll.
Yeah, give us a little shout out if you've joined us. Give us a little note, and if you would share it, if you want other people to come and join us, the more the merrier.
Yeah, it looks like Chuck's joined us.
I joined us.
Wow, how about that?
Hey, wait a
That's
minute.
good.
I'm
Now
here.
you're
You're here
in the
and here.
Matrix.
I'm here.
You never knew you could be in two places at one
I
time.
heard of the fourth dimension. Now I'm beginning to understand
Yeah,
what that's
so-
all about.
Yeah.
I could be two places at once.
That's
So
right.
Wolfgang has also.
Oh, you did
joined
check
us.
in.
Yeah. Hi,
Wolfgang, you're in for a real treat tonight. It's fortified wines.
Yes, not too far. We're going to be drinking a couple from not too far from you. I expect, right? You're in France, southern France, right?
Yeah, that's not too far away from Portugal.
Little ways.
I guess.
Northern
Portugal we
Portugal?
are anyway.
A lot
from the
closer than
door.
we are.
Interestingly, I talked to Wolfgang on the drive down to Manhattan this weekend, and he was sharing a bottle of our wine with his friends who have moved up from Australia to the south of France, buying a house there and whatnot.
Wow,
And they enjoyed a Winnipesaukee Rosé
excellent.
that he saved a bottle of wine
Wow,
for. I mean, I've been
Wow.
there for 2 years now, I think,
Excellent.
that I brought wine up there to Wolfgang. So
New
that was
Hampshire,
very fortunate.
Rock and Provence,
Yeah, that's right.
and
Yeah, come to my
Australia.
house. I got some New Hampshire wine you might like. What's New Hampshire?
Wow.
So just some basics before we move on. We do this every time. If you are out there, we would love it if you'd make some comments or say hello, or even better, ask some questions of us as we go through. We're happy to answer any questions during the show, and we see them live as they come through. Also, if you would like to post, share the post with any of your friends who you think might be interested in this topic. And if you want to subscribe, there's a little bell in the upper right-hand corner of your screen that you should be able to click to subscribe to our channel, which means you will be able to get a notification every time we go live, and that way you won't miss us next time. Also, for YouTube subscribers or YouTube watchers, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and again, you'll get notifications of our live broadcasts. Let's see, we got some exciting news upstairs.
They're getting so close.
We're in the
They're
home
getting so
stretch.
close.
We're actually doing
Awesome.
doing a walkthrough to do the punch list on
Wow.
the finishing touches. We're hoping 3 or 4 weeks. The piano is actually going to be delivered at the end of April or the beginning of March.
The sound expert is here tomorrow, installing
We're getting our
monitors
speakers
and everything.
so, yeah, so a lot's happening upstairs. Really
Yeah.
excited.
Wow.
If you're in the next few weeks, and if you're in the winery and you want to see, we're giving sneak previews to anybody who asks. So let us know if you'd like to see what's going on up there. You get a sneak peek. It's getting close. We're really in the home stretch. We're really excited. We brought a new person on board, Danielle Claremont. She's going to be working with you. If you have an interest in using our new space for an event, Danielle is going to be available to help you with that. So keep that in mind if you're looking for event space this summer or beyond. Let's see. Anything else new? There's a bunch of new stuff, isn't there? Maybe
Would you like something in your glass?
I think we should drink. I think we should definitely get something in our glass. So I think I've covered enough of the basics. We have a few people on with us now. Matt's with us. Hi,
Excellent.
Matt.
Hey, Matt.
Great to see you again. And I think that. Oh, and hey, Deborah's on. Hi, Deborah. Deborah, our chef manager's watching from home today. She's not here, so that's great.
Excellent.
Hi, Deborah. And
that's
good. So what are we doing today?
What does this look like to everybody out there?
Delicious.
It looks delicious, right? How's that look?
Oh yeah, nice.
A 10-year-old tawny
port.
Yes.
And
So
nice place.
very historic wine, created centuries ago, hails from Portugal, made and sometimes a variety of grapes, but there are some key principal grapes that they make port out of. You've been over there and actually sampled different ports, right?
Yeah. I have. The Douro River Valley has a unique terroir, and they've got their own variety of grape. That's something that's evolved there. I don't know if I'm saying it right, Tinto Nacional or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And they make a lot of different wines out of it, but in Douro, most of the wine turns into this fortified wine known as port. And why would they fortify it? Was because you could put it in barrels and send it all over Earth on sailing ships. It doesn't spoil.
Right.
So,
before we go any further, I actually have some pictures that I can share with everybody to give people an idea, some perspective. So let me. I'll
pour a little something in our glasses while we start. Should we start? Let's start Rubie and go to tawny.
Yeah. So while Ken's doing that, let's just look here. This is actually the coastal region where Porto is, where all of the port ends up for transport around the world. That little area there, Douro Littoral. And this is the actual region. The red area there is actually the Douro region where all port is made. In fact, port is one of the first appellations in the world to be defined. They defined it in 1755. They marked off an area, and anything grown outside that area could not be called a port. So I believe I read that there were 2 other appellations in Italy that came before port, but one of the very earliest anyway. And then this is the actual Douro Valley region. You can see a little more close up some of the various subregions of the Douro Valley. And then I can show you it's a World Heritage Site. They have been terracing the hillsides of this valley for hundreds of years, thousands of years. Back to the Greeks, they started planting grapes in the 2nd century BC, and they started terracing these hills so they could grow grapes. So it's absolutely spectacular. You see, some of these terraces were built hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, all along the valley, and it's just beautiful. Look at some of the stonework that went into that. So it's a pretty unique and special place, and they make some pretty amazing products. So we have a couple of ports from the Douro Valley today to share with you. And why are we talking about port specifically, Ken?
Well, bring it into perspective and bring it right here into New Hampshire.
Bring it home, Ken.
So we actually make a port-like wine. It's not a true port. So port is made along the ways that a classic red wine is made. So you pick the grapes at peak ripeness. They've got a bunch of sugar in them and all sorts of flavors. Those get crushed, and fermentation starts. The yeast eat up the sugars and convert that to alcohol. And normally with a red wine, you let that go to completion or dryness. All the sugar is converted into alcohol. But in the case of port, to be able to send this around the world and to stabilize it, they take some brandy and pour that into the fermentation vats while it's fermenting and bring the alcohol level up, which kills the yeast activity, preserving some of the natural sugars from the grapes.
Interestingly, I read just recently, and we always refer to it as brandy, and it is very often referred to as brandy around the world.
Yeah.
But in some of the reading I did today, it turns out that it's very much an unlike brandy. The distilled grape juice that they use to make this product that is like brandy they said tastes very little like brandy.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
There's a different word for it too. I
Yes.
read that as well.
Yeah.
So what's,
I can imagine.
I mean, by definition,
It is a
brandy is a
it is
distillate of
It is.
grapes.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay, but it's a different type of brandy?
well, they don't put it in no barrels. It's like you took our heirloom crab apple and distilled it and put it in a
It would
bottle.
be clear,
It would
right?
be totally clear.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't use all of this fancy Courvoisier sort of stuff
There you go. That's
to
it.
make it an interesting brandy. They just take it. It has whatever that grapey flavor is left over in the distillation.
So it's a grape
It's
vodka is what you're saying.
It's
So
a
so
grape-
it's
yeah,
just,
it's a
they
grape
just
vodka.
distill it?
Right.
There's no barrel aging,
It's less
no
interesting,
character.
so it's not like drinking a brandy.
Okay, yeah, no, I get that. I mean, they're really,
just used to kill the yeast after 3
they
days.
just want to pour some alcohol in there and jack it up to 20 or 22%
and stop
alcohol
the ferment.
and stop the ferment.
Yeah, and then put it in a barrel and send it around the world. Everyone's happy.
Yeah, and there's really sort of a way to think about it is the younger ports have a brighter red color, a fresher fruit character to them. They may not have aged in little barrels that provide a lot of oak. They may be aged in a large oak container, sometimes
Like a
even
barrique.
stainless steel. Yep. And so you're just trying to present that fresh, fruity character of it. And they often refer to it as a Rubie port.
Mhm.
And then some of those that they take and barrel them down into smaller wine-like barrels.
Yeah.
They age and they
Like
get some of the character from that. And it may go out many years. Those are called a tawny port.
Correct.
And they can be done. There are some that are specific vintages. So you have a vintage port,
Yes.
a late vintage port,
Yep.
and a tawny port. And these are separations of character and price points, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you probably got a chance to try some of these LBVs
Yeah.
and regular tawnies. And,
Yeah, you hit on a lot of interesting things there. The distinction between Rubie.
you know, I haven't had a sip yet. Have you guys?
How about this?
Oh,
I want
yeah.
to cheers
Yeah.
before I go on
Cheers.
to a
Yeah.
long, simple diatribe. Cheers.
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 To port
Cheers to port.
and to Porto.
So this is a Rubie.
It's funny, you know, I started down the path of talking about port, but I didn't say why we were doing that here. And
No, we'll get to
Hermit
it.
was,
though.
we got distracted.
Yeah, think of how more
I hadn't had a
we're
sip
going
yet.
to be.
So this is a Rubie port. So
Yeah.
tell us about
All
Rubie
right.
ports.
So, well, the Rubie port is, as you said, it's put into a large barrel, bottled after being in a barrique. I mean, a big, huge wooden tank like this. And I'm not sure on the timing on it, but I think that a lot of them, they have to wait a few years because there's a commission that decides if a vintage is a reserve vintage or not. And it's done not by the wineries, but
It's
done
usually,
by,
in the
the
reading I
flavor
did, is
of the
2
port
years.
is what
So they
about
wait
2
2 years
years.
before they decide.
so this
if
this
it's gonna go
governmental
vintage or
commission
not.
comes in and says, oh, okay, that's a vintage that you can call, you know, an estate or.
It's
or whatever.
actually it's called a vintage port.
A vintage port.
That's
Yeah.
actually the name they give it.
Yeah.
And you can only get that name if this governing body
Right.
assigns it after the prescribed period of time.
Right, so to bring it into reality in my head, so 2016, they pick some grapes, they ferment it, they fortify it, it's sitting around. 2 years later, in the fall of 2018,
Yeah.
someone comes by, samples it and says, okay, that's good enough to call it vintage. Or they say, nope,
Right.
that's not good enough to be vintage, you've got to do it all as a non-vintage
And
port.
interestingly, and I'm not sure if it's 2 years, it may be that time frame
I'm
may be
pretty sure
different.
that's what I just
2 years,
read. Yeah,
okay.
it's 2
So,
years.
but the interesting thing is, if they define it as a vintage port, the goal then is to bottle it and put it in your cellar for 20 years,
Exactly.
20 to 30 years.
Right.
So
There-
there's,
that's the suggested drink time of
so
a vintage port.
That's the distinction of the Rubie port. So Rubie port is going to act like a wine that we're familiar with. They bottle it and then it ages in the bottle. It changes over time in that semi-anaerobic environment and evolves over the years. So when I was in Porto, I had a Rubie port that was 50 years old. I had one that was 40 years old. I had one that was 30 years old. And interestingly, like if we taste this, it's very fruity and fresh and, you know, sweet, plummy, nice
Yeah,
flavors. If this sat in the cellar and it was a good ageable version, in 50 years, this port is going to be much more like what we're going to get
Like
out
a
of this
tawny.
tawny port because of the way they process the tawny port.
So on that note,
Yeah.
Matt had asked the question, do ports lay down better than fortified wines? And I think you just answered that.
Yeah, so get your Rubie Ports, buy
Absolutely.
them, put them in your cellar for 50 years, and get a nice vintage. One that they say is going to be better. And
Matt, we'll see you in 2071.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, you can buy them already old too, but they're pretty pricey.
So the reason that we're talking about Portugal
Oh, you're gonna get
and
back
port,
to
yeah,
this.
I've got to get back to this just so people actually recognize why we're here today, is we have a port like wine.
Yes.
And the most common version of that, I think many of you know, is called Deep Blue. It's 100% wild blueberries, and it's higher alcohol, but it's not done through fortification, just through natural fermentation. It's not as high. These are in the 17, 18% range. These are in the 20, 22% range. But it has some of the characteristics. The Deep Blue is more along those Rubie Port, young Rubie Port range, bright fruit, fresh flavors.
Right.
And then we have a barrel-aged version, which we call Deep Blue Reserve, that spends a couple of years in a barrel becoming oxidized, and it develops some unique characteristics and aroma, and we'll talk about that later on, how we discovered that.
Yeah.
So what we have today, which is very unique, is the very first vintage of that was in 2013,
13. Wow.
and then we had a 2015, a 2017, which is currently for sale in the tasting room, and still in barrel is the 2019.
Wow.
So we're going to be able to do a vertical tasting of our Deep Blue Reserve.
That's fantastic.
So that's why we're here today, to talk about port. We're just giving you some historic context to real port. We didn't set out to make a port like wine. We were messing around with blueberries and making wine out of what grows here. It turns out that these wines have some characteristics that are reminiscent to port.
Yeah.
That's the distinction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
And we've told this before, but I still think it's funny that we almost got arrested making this
The original
wine.
Deep Blue.
The original Deep Blue. And,
The original Deep Blue. Yeah.
following the old farmers and their jacking practices of jacking their ciders, attempting to freeze the blueberry juice out on the February cold winter days.
The blueberry wine.
The blueberry wine.
Yeah, we took the wine and we were trying to boost the alcohol by removing water through freezing. And that's a form of cryogenic distillation, and we didn't have a distiller's license,
Right.
so it was illegal. This is made through fermentation.
It's totally legal.
Totally legal.
Yeah.
And we're all
Well,
So-
and we can do that.
right.
We could have somebody distill some of our brandy.
Yeah.
We could add it to this and kill the distillation.
Oh,
And make it.
maybe we have something like that going on in some of the barrels back here. That's
Oh.
going to be coming out in the
Oh,
future.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I
We
didn't.
could have a
That's
little bit of the
right.
black port
I
today
didn't spill
too.
beans, did I?
So
No.
No.
I was making a suggestion.
yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Oh.
I do want to make a point, though. We haven't mentioned this yet. First of all, in order to call a port, it has to be made in that region. It's one of the most regulated regions in the world.
Did the
wine
GTB
regions.
approve that? Oh no, we're not doing that, are we?
No, the Porto region where port is made is one of the most regulated regions in the world, and it's just like Champagne. You're not allowed to name a product a port unless it's grown and made there. So
we don't call these.
we don't call these ports,
Call
and
them
it's
Deep Blue
also
Reserve.
important to note that we don't make them like a port. We just went through the process by which port is made, and
we don't do that.
And we don't do that.
We don't
But-
even use grapes.
Stylistically, exactly. Stylistically, though, we find that these drink in the same way as a port, and you would drink them at the same time that you might open a bottle of port in the end of the evening as an aperitif or digestif after a meal to have with your dessert. They have a little sweetness, so they're going to go with the dessert course. So I wanted to make.
Let's
that
do a
distinction.
side by side. This would be the rubiest most version of our Deep Blue Reserve because it's still in barrel. We can do them side by side. And I want to hear more about your times in Portugal, Chuck. 'cause it's such a-
Before we go on times in
Yeah,
Portugal,
let's answer some questions.
yeah, well, Wolfgang just mentioned the concept that port is regulated like champagne, and he asked, would it be fair to say that port is great, but there are so many other fortified wines that deserve a heads up and are possibly better? And I think that's an accurate statement, and it encourages me to want to come up with other ideas for fortified wines we can talk about in the future. One of which you're going to be adding to the mix real soon. What is it going to be called?
I'm not going to say.
You're gonna hold.
No.
You're gonna hold back.
Yeah, I'm going to hold back because it's not legal.
No, you. You haven't. Yeah. Oh boy. Never mind. Stay on
Back
the.
that
Not
on.
out of this live. That never happened.
I know.
We're not calling it
nothing.
black port, just so you know.
No, it's not
No.
going to be called black port.
So this has really nice fruity aroma, rich, that rich juicy, same sort of rich juicy thing that the Rubie Port had for me.
Wait a minute. This is the one you just poured for me.
Yeah, so this is the Rubie Port, commercial Rubie Port
Yep.
from Portugal. And that is the 2019 vintage of the Deep Blue Reserve, which is still in barrel.
Well, it's young
it's got some of that
nose.
alcohol and young. Well, that's why I wanted to,
Yeah.
to compare it to the.
Yeah.
And when we get to the tawny, we'll compare it to our
Yes.
8-year-old.
It's more aged. No, this is really nice. It has that same sort of rich mouthfeel, really dark fruit flavors, like not raisiny, but say blueberry raisins or something like that. It has just enough sweetness to make that blueberry kind of stand out. It's a really nice comparison to the port. I think it's maybe a little less cloying, maybe a little less sugar, maybe a little less alcohol, a little less alcohol bite.
It's a little easier drinking.
It's easier to drink.
I'm thinking, Ken, the powers that be might actually put vintage on the label here. Don't you think? This is pretty nice.
Yeah. So what would happen if Matt buys a bottle of this or a case or 10 and puts it in his basement for 50 years?
We'll see you in 2771.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'll go.
What do you think, Matt? You're going to lay some of these wines down for 50 years and your grandkids can try them?
It is interesting. It
It's
is.
a legacy. I'm just saying.
It definitely has a distinct flavor. It's not equivalent to a port flavor, but it has the structure and character of a port.
It doesn't have
Of
the
a Rubie
complexity of that Rubie Port for me.
Yeah, it's not as rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's more. The Rubie is more. Well, it's richer and more depth of flavor because it has plum and cherry.
There's a
and
spice in there. There's like an elderberry spice.
There is kind of a spice in there.
Yeah,
So
it's really.
it may well be a blend of different grapes that grow in barrow that are in that adds that
Yep.
complexity
Yep.
that cinnamon is was after it in that. And whereas this is a monovarietal.
Yeah, there's
what is
a
that?
popular port called Six Hands, I believe, that's classic. It's got this little emblem. You may have seen it, and they use different varieties of grapes.
Yeah.
Actually,
Along with
I
the
think I
Tinto.
read that the Rubie Ports are commonly many different varieties of grapes.
Yeah.
That's
It's
part
a
of
field.
it.
It's a field blend.
Yeah. So we should try this with chocolate.
Yeah, I should tell people about this. This is, ports are often an after dinner drink because it's heavier, it's richer, it's got a sweetness to it. Your mouth is just, and your whole body has gone through this great, dinner or something like that. And you're looking for a sort of a digestive or a little thing to finish off. And very often something sweet goes well, but you couldn't have just a light, dry white wine. It just wouldn't hold up to what was there. So a big, heavy, higher alcohol port goes well, and it pairs really well with chocolates and with cheeses.
How did it go with the cheese? You tried it with the cheese.
I liked it a lot. I tried the blue cheese with it, and I really liked that a lot. I tried the aged cheddar. That worked well, but not as nice as that blue cheese. It's just really weird. We've talked about this before.
I know, you're
I'll
another
never seek out blue cheese ever, except for this one Blue Hills blue cheese. How was the chocolate?
I think it's probably one of my all-time favorite combinations of our deep blues and dark chocolates just go together so fabulously. And I think the same with port. There's nothing more enjoyable than a nice, well-made chocolate with this style of beverage at the end of a night. The chocolate that I'm referring to is Winnipesaukee chocolate made in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, and we sell it here in the tasting room, of course. So I'm a big fan of port and chocolate, or Deep Blue Reserve and chocolate.
Now, which are these two different chocolates?
Yes. Shoot, I forget. She told us the two. This is your classic dark chocolate.
Yeah.
Becky's.
No.
She'll chime in.
She'll
maybe if
chime
she's
in and
watching.
tell us. Yeah.
We're not too busy up there.
Yeah.
I just tried some dried blueberries
Ooh,
with
how
our
was
Deep
that?
Blue Reserve.
I bet that's good.
It was.
Yeah.
I like the flavor, but it's really along the lines of the wine. It kind of enhances the wine. I would like to add dried blueberries to the ferment, maybe just to boost some of the complexity and depth.
I like
So
that
it really
idea.
happens in the mouth
Yeah.
nicely, but it doesn't add any oils or creaminess or fat that you get from the cheese and the chocolate,
Yes, yeah.
which
that's-
really goes well with those higher.
Yeah.
formats.
Both the chocolate and the blue cheese were just phenomenal with the Rubie Port, and we know that they're already phenomenal with our Deep Blue Reserve. So
I had a 50-year-old port with Gordon once, and about an inch and a half of the bottom of the bottle was sediment.
did he chop it off?
He did.
You have a sword. I don't know what that's called.
I forget what it's.
The
I forget what
corks are so
that.
bad.
Yeah,
you know,
it was
that
totally
you
rotted at
take
the
a
top.
sword and you
That's
chop up-
actually, it's different for port. It's not the sword.
not the sword?
There's
Oh
another
no,
way.
no! It was
they
they heat it up.
They heat it up with a
and
wire.
They crack it with a wire. Yeah,
Oh,
something like that.
The sword is for champagne because
That's the
it's under
champagne,
pressure. So as soon as you knock it, the pressure
Yeah,
blows the top off.
he cut it because the cork was just a crumbly mess.
Yeah.
Just a total crumbling mess.
Yeah.
You couldn't get anything like
If
that.
you haven't, you actually, I
It was
wish
some
I
sort of
had.
a cut. There's a video.
There's a video. If you Google how to cut the top off of a port bottle, I bet you'll find it.
Yeah.
There's a really great video I watched of somebody doing that, an expert opening a very vintage port
Mhm.
that he needed to be careful of not damaging the cork. It was quite fascinating. So
Yeah.
I recommend it.
So
But-
any of you are experts out there that want to share a bottle of 50-year-old port with us and you know how to open
I bet
it,
Matt can
we'll
do that with
we'll
some
do
of
it.
his welding gear.
Yeah,
We'll
right.
do it live on
It's
Facebook.
reverse welding, Matt. It's cutting glass.
So Ken Gregory Farley's shown up again. We wanna
Excellent,
say
hey,
hello.
Greg.
How's the
And,
training going, Greg?
He says he's looking at the 1966 Quinta de Naval. Do you know what that is?
Nope.
I don't know what he's referring to.
66.
It's official. You guys are my favorite Monday afternoons.
That's
He's
great.
going to
Greg.
take you up on the red carpet treatment.
Oh, good. Yes, I told him well, I don't think I've seen Greg for 30 years or something like that, but we reconnected through this. And his family, for various things, is going to be in the New England area
Oh, good.
later this year in the fall.
Great.
So I told him if he came by, I'd roll out the red carpet. And
He's
give him a
gonna- he's-
tour
I
and
think
all
he's gonna
this
be
stuff.
here.
So that's great.
Looking forward to meeting you, Gregory.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, maybe he'll bring a bottle of 50-year-old Rubie Port and an opener, and we can
That's
have him on Facebook Live. Or maybe he can tell us about stocks.
He's
Oh, yeah.
hinting.
Yeah.
He's hinting. 50-year-old port. Where are we going next?
So why don't we do this? Why don't we finish off the commercial stuff,
All right.
and then
Twist my arm.
Wait, it's
and
all
then
commercials. Everything here's
and then we're gonna go. It's all commercial stuff. You know what I meant? So classic port. Finish off the classic Rubie Port.
Yep.
And switch
just-
the position of your glasses.
Yeah, put them all four.
And now
side
we're
by
going to
side.
do all four side by side with the, you guys already have, give you a little more.
Yep.
That's the 19. We're going to go for the 17.
Wait, we're going to mix this with the. Okay, we're just mixing that. Or can I
Clean
the
that up.
glass? Okay. Because I think that would leave a dark mark.
Wolfgang mentions that he's done the sword cutting before.
Oh, really?
Looks a lot easier than it actually is. I imagine that. In
In fact,
fact,
that was a damaged bottle is what he's saying.
I went to a wine affair where it was a wine cruise, and the organizer of the cruise, you might remember her. I'm drawing a blank on her name right now, but everybody, as they entered the boat, got a sip of champagne, and so she had a sword, and
To
she was
open.
opening each bottle that she opened for the cruise with the sword.
You're doing that, just pull the cork out. It's not chopping the.
No, it breaks the neck.
Breaks the neck.
You hit the neck at just the right point, and the pressure snaps the neck, and it blows the neck off.
It doesn't send
So a champagne bottle has a little T-top
Yeah.
because the wires go down below that,
Yeah.
and it prevents the wires
But
from
aren't you,
things. So
aren't you sending a projectile with glass in
oh
it?
yeah, you are with broken glass.
Yes. So it was. I was
That's
watching as I'm walking up
Don't
in
you
the
love
line.
historic European activities focused around alcohol?
So I'm watching on this cruise. This woman cut as I'm approaching, and I'm looking forward because I'm getting close, and there's a new bottle, and she's going to open a new bottle for me, and I get to watch her close up how it works. She did it 5 times. She couldn't do it. She had to pop it by hand. I was like, oh, my first chance to see close up a champagne bottle. But anyway, I got to watch it from afar.
So the very first vintage, and I think we should do these backwards. So we're starting with the Rubie of 19, and then it'll progressively get older.
Okay.
These all spent about 2 years in the barrel before they were put into bottle. Again, it's a 19 that's not in bottle yet. It's still back in the barrels. 17, which was taken out about a year or so ago and bottled. That's in our tasting room for sale. And then we have a few out of our library of the 15 and the 13. The 13 is the very first vintage. And you got to tell us the story about how this, you were really the inspiration for this whole lineup right here.
What had happened, the evolution of the story was that I got a trip to
Portugal, say.
Portugal.
Sounds good.
It was a 5-day trip, and it was under this contract that was back. This was actually probably 2013, where you only got paid to fly the airplane to and from where you were going, and so they have a 5-day trip to Portugal, which is a great place to go, but you only get paid for 2 days of work and be there for 5 days. So
does how much you got paid have to do with how you made this?
Yes, yes. So this is important. So I was very junior, and I got to do this 5-day trip in December.
Good to keep him on
because
track.
nobody else wanted to do it, and because the pay was.
He just wants to talk about the pilot. See, that's what he's passionate about.
I do. So anyway, so I went to Portugal, and we had 3 days there to goof off, and I got on the high-speed train from Lisbon to Porto, and just went and did a self-tour, and it was December. There was nobody there. It was 70 degrees, and Porto is probably more beautiful than Lisbon. And I was just blown away. It was one of the most beautiful places I've been in my life. The Douro River is phenomenal. There were gobs of cyclists around, which really always makes me feel comfortable. The cobble streets were just fantastic. The food was unbelievable. And I actually stayed in a youth hostel, and I had the whole place to myself. And the guy working the youth hostel, told me which wineries to go to and where they were and how to get there. And so I just went from winery to winery to winery to winery. So anyway, I'll mix in that story.
So we should just drink while you're talking, because this is going to be a little wild. Yeah.
So anyway,
we'll get there eventually.
We're getting back to the 2013 and how this all got started.
Yeah, the bottle of
regular deep
blue, and we had it after dinner. And I didn't drink the whole thing. And I was all excited about how they make tawny port, which is leaving the wine exposed to air in barrels for X period of time. And so I thought we have this leftover deep blue left in my refrigerator. 3 months later, Ken comes over for dinner again. I said, well, let's try this wine that was sitting languishing in the back of your refrigerator for 3 months. And
thinking we were just going to dump it out.
Yeah, and it was awesome. It had brought out
was awesome.
That rich, little oxidized flavors. Where it goes with port is sort of hazelnutty, and I think that you get something similar to that out of the blueberries. So that was the genesis of.
So it was like the next day. I had a big batch of the 2013 Deep Blue, and I was going to bottle it all. It was time to get it into bottle. It had fermented. Had been aged. But I have a little 20-gallon French oak barrel. I did the first Hermitage in there. I've aged all sorts of different things in it. So I took off 20 gallons, 77 liters of our 2013 Deep Blue and put it in this barrel and bottled the rest of it. And that was our 2013 Deep Blue. And I just decided to track it. Most times when you age a wine in a barrel, the barrel is evaporating some of the wine, either the water or the alcohol, and it's concentrating and changing the character of the wine. And with regular red wine at 12% or 13%, you don't want to have a large surface in the barrel exposed to air. So every month or so, the winemaker would go and top off the barrels, sample it, see how it's evolving, and then top it off. But I decided, because of this partial barrel in the back of your fridge, that maybe I should just risk it, this little barrel, and let it play with the air for a while and just track it carefully. So I let it go without topping it off. And I'll never forget this sequence, because I was tasting it every month, which is fun. And so there was far less than 20 gallons there left over, but it basically stayed about the same, sort of like this Rubie Port, the 19 right now. It's still basically our deep blue with a little bit of oak character.
Yeah.
But at 15 months in a little French oak barrel, all of a sudden there were these tawny characteristics, this dried fruit, these really sort of sweeter
Nutty.
character, nutty, chocolatey, all these characters. I'm like, wow, all right,
Yeah.
let's take that out and bottle it up. And since then, I've been doing the vintages in full-size barrels, and it takes longer.
Wow.
So these, I think, are in the range of like 27 months or 28 months. The 19 was put in there. It's been 24, 28 months now, and it's still not there. But I have 2 barrels of that. It's a bigger batch.
Oh, good.
So this is fun. So we get to go down the line here and taste and see what the differences are. I saw you looking at the color.
Yes.
Bob.
Did you notice?
Yeah.
Look at, it's not really easy. Here, I'll use this card
Yeah, white
here.
piece of paper. or
I'll use
something.
this card. Look at this. You can kind of see.
It's market.
This has definitely got the brick color.
Yep.
This is very ruby red,
Yep.
bright red. So yeah, it's changing over time.
Yep.
And they actually the 15 is even, you can see the difference. It's not quite where the 13 is.
Yeah, it's got some brown.
Got a little
to it.
brown, but it's
Yep.
still got the little bit of the ruby color. And then again, it comes a little closer.
Right. So
With the 17.
progressively, the red dissipates and the brownish brick character increases.
Right. And that's part of oxidation. I mean,
And that's
right?
the
That's where that color comes from, the addition of air.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, is it actually true that they don't top off the barrels in Porto?
I believe it's true.
That's part of the process?
Yeah, for
I
Tawny
think
Port.
so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rubie Port, they use a big barrique, and for Tawny Port, they use
Small
kind of
barrels.
Small
they
barrels, and they let
don't
them
fill,
evaporate.
They don't top.
Okay. Yeah. That's good to know.
There, it's less of an issue too because the alcohol is a little higher, and this helps us too because the alcohol is a little higher, so it protects the wine.
Because the higher in alcohol,
Yeah, with a regular
the
wine-
slower the process of.
Like sour beer, some of you maybe a true sour beer, something that's 6, 8, maybe 10% alcohol. A beer goes into a barrel, and it's not topped off like the guy up at Oxbow in Maine there, and it creates a sherry floor. FLOR is basically a surface infection that takes place, and that's the interface with the oxygen, and it grows there and it changes, and there's other bacteria that adds that sour tang to the beer, but makes it more wine-like.
Yep.
So a lot of those true barrel sour beers have a wine-like character from that oxidation.
It also means that when very often I'll open one of these bottles at the end of a day, and I've already had a few glasses of wine, might not finish the bottle. I've had one sit in, as Chuck did, in my refrigerator for weeks, and still enjoy it.
Yeah.
It does change a little bit, but it's still very enjoyable. It has the characteristics I'm looking for. It only, if anything, gets more tawny-like and more interesting. So that's a nice feature of this wine, is that you don't need to suck the air out or anything. You leave it in your fridge and it will just continue to stay together for a while.
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah.
It's even full-on tawny ports. I know
Sure.
they recommend you consume them
Once you've opened
once you've opened them within a couple of weeks, or
Right.
maybe go out 2 or 3, 4 months at the most.
Never a problem at my house.
That's not a problem at my place
house.
either. Yes.
either.
So
So what about this
so-
17 that we tried here?
so
There's a 19 and the 17.
Did you guys go through them all?
No.
You should do that. Let's do that, guys. It's
All right,
worth it. I did
Right.
that
You've already
while
done it.
you were
Okay.
talking.
All right.
Well, Chuck was telling you a story. I sipped each one.
Yeah.
So try it, and then we
Yeah.
can talk about the differences that you discover. as
there's a
you-
lot
as you
between
did.
each one.
And while no, there is. I know, it's quite interesting. That's why doing it all at once rather than doing it one at a time will be, I think, more informative.
Yeah, the 17 has almost a honey floral kind of thing
It's
going on.
got a
for
really
me.
nice floral character.
Yeah.
Spicy.
Yep. Much different than the 19. And then, we'll just jump into the 15 jumps into much more notes of that tawny kind of
There's a real
rich.
sort of more grapey, winey aromatic. Those are terrible words to use because it's so broad, but it's so hard. I think the alcohol seems a little higher on the 15. I get a little more alcohol. It's almost a little closed compared to the 17 and 13.
See, I did this already. Now I'm doing the food.
Do it again.
No, I'm doing the food.
Okay.
Because I already gained some insight into what I think about these.
Oh,
Yeah. So the
I love how
13
these age
Yeah,
out.
I mean, if there's just the progression that you would expect here is what I'm experiencing, a matter of character and the oxidation, the amount of rich, jammy fruits going from fresh fruit and floral into rich, hazelnutty kind of dried fruit character in the 13. It's interesting, comparing, say, the Rubie Port to this. I would believe that actually our wines are going to age in the bottle over time, unlike the tawny port, which is designed just to, it's like a scotch. You buy a 15-year-old scotch, it's always a 15-year-old scotch. It's blended to taste a certain way. The 10-year-old tawny port is blended to taste like their 10-year-old, so it's always the same every year.
Yeah.
But it's so high in alcohol that it's not going to change. Whereas ours are lower in alcohol.
Right. So they'll keep evolving.
I expect them to keep evolving.
They are changing.
So what did you discover by doing them all side by side? Did you have some favorite vintages?
I like them all.
Mhm.
They're all different.
Mm-hmm. They are.
They all bring something a little different to the glass. I don't know if you guys picked this up like I did, because there's a little detracting note to the 13. It's faintly corked.
I didn't.
So I
didn't
got
get that.
there's a faint corked character to the 13, which is unfortunate. But it actually blends in so nicely with this old earthy cellar type of character that it blends in nicely to it.
Yeah, I didn't.
How would you think it'll be corked? Do you think that these corks are bad?
From the cork, yeah.
We get another bottle?
I already did.
Oh.
So I compared this side by side with another one after I opened this one up before, because I was not topping up, but I'm adding. So there's another.
Where do you get it on the?
Who knows? So that's good. It is faint, but it's definitely there. And if I had that other bottle open, I could compare it to you, but it was gonna.
Would you drank it?
No, I put it in the barrel.
Oh.
So part of the thing, you must have seen this over in Portugal. They have this solera, and a solera is not a place where someone goes and gets a tan. It's a place where they have a series of barrels stacked up. They do this with sherry. They do it with port. They do it with a variety of Madeira. And it's a way of having consistency and creating these, or maintaining these deep, interesting notes. So what they do is, in 2013, they have that in barrels. And when they go to bottle it, they don't bottle all of it. They bottle part of it. Then they take their 2015 and they fill up those barrels. And then when the 15 is ready to be bottled, they take out half of it. And now it's a blend of 13 and 15, and they bottle that. And they put their 17 in there. And then when they go to bottle the 17, they have a blend of 13, 15, and 17. When it comes around to 19, they got this blend. So they never drain the barrels completely. And some ports, they still have a portion of their first wine that they made back in 1888 or whatever.
I don't
That's
know
still
that
in those barrels.
I didn't see them doing that in Porto.
You didn't?
No.
Okay.
But I think that's something how they make sherry.
They do it in sherry for
But
sure.
that's in Spain.
I think that's I don't know. I have not heard that connected with port so much as I have other regions.
Okay.
When
I think
it
that's
was talked
Spanish.
about, there's
Or Madeira. or something.
Madeira for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was done in ports as
Now,
well.
when we were in New York, we went to what's the Hazlitt winery. They had bought Harvey's Bristol.
The Red
Cream.
Cat.
And they made the Red Cat, but they had
Yes, they had set up a
inherited
Solera.
Solera, and the interesting thing to me about that is it was outside and exposed.
Right.
it gets hot as bejeepers
Yeah.
in the summer, and they just let it boil out there in 100-degree weather. And then they do the mixy thing and all the
Bejesus and the mixy thing.
yeah, these are technical terms. Don't use them at home.
Okay.
So yeah,
We're not in public anyway.
Yeah.
public anyway.
It's a good thing we're not in public.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You heard it here first. You watch it. It's going to trend on Facebook, and everyone's going to be saying mixy and whatever else I just said. So anyway, so that was a different thing, and it's
Right.
awesome. It's
Yeah.
it's a lot like port. And I fell in love with this Solera method of sherry in that trip.
So what I do in my mixed up world, in my mind, is for every vintage, I include a little bit of the previous vintage. So today I was checking on the 19 for this thing, and I took out my sample. And then before I put the bung back in the 19, I added a bottle of these
Of each of the previous.
to each of them.
So this is Method Hardcastle.
So this is Method Hardcastle.
We're gonna-
It's a fakey. It's a fakey Solera.
So we need to come up with a new term. So you're inventing a new process.
Yes, this is the evolution of
So-
the
Yeah,
process.
it's like the lazy man Solera.
So
It's a space constrained Solera. Now we should try these with the chocolate
yes,
and cheese.
I also as I went through these, I found that the 13 and the 17 were the closest,
Yeah, I agree.
and what's really
They have a
exciting.
sweet barrel character.
Yes, and the 17 is what's for sale now in the tasting room,
Mhm.
and it relates closest to the 13, which has always been my favorite. I've always been really
I love the
amazed
13.
by
That's-
how that 13 came out. So
Yeah, I think the 15. I think the 15 is still a little young,
yeah,
and I may
yeah,
not have left it in the barrel
as long.
as long as I did the 17. I'd have to go back to my notes on that, but it seemed, as I said, a little closed.
Yeah.
It's not as aromatically complex as the 13 and 17 are. I agree.
However, I do think that the 19, after another year or two in the barrel, is going to be as good or better than any of them.
Wait till I do the 20, because
I'm gonna
that
have to
vintage.
wait.
Well, that
It's
vintage
sort of
of
par for the
berries.
course.
That vintage of berries. You know, the
Oh, yes.
2019 vintage of blueberries in Maine was excellent, but the 2020 vintage of blueberries in Maine was superlative. It goes back to like 2012. It's higher bricks, much more complex flavors, and the Petite Blue and the Petite Blue Reserve that are aging right now from those berries are really coming out fantastic. So I just spoke with Todd Merrill, and he's set aside some of those high bricks berries from 2020 for us.
Wow.
So I'm going to make a barrel
Two.
Deep Blue Reserve.
You said two?
2 barrels.
I
I'm
heard you
going to
say
make 2
two.
barrels of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Do I need to buy another barrel? So switching to the food side now.
Yeah.
So I also did the both cheeses and chocolate with a couple of these, and I was really impressed with the blue cheese. You're absolutely spot on.
The blue cheese.
For whatever reason, it's very mind-boggling to me. But that blue cheese and those very odd characteristics that come from the blue cheese blends with the sweetness of this port so beautifully. It just brings out the richness of the drink and the cheese. It's one of those magical pairings.
Yeah, the cheddar is really nice, and it doesn't detract at all, but it doesn't elevate each other.
It
And then
makes the cheddar sweeter.
Yeah,
it actually gives the cheddar a sweet character, which is sort of
right.
the antithesis of cheddar. It's not, like I said, it's not bad, but it doesn't enhance the cheddar.
No, it didn't enhance.
I mean, this blue cheese is like
It's mind blowing.
it's
Yeah, the blue
musty,
cheese, yeah.
it's rich,
Yeah.
it's
And it stands
funky,
out.
and then
And it gets creamier and richer and more standouty, but also the wine still can make
And then you add the wine.
Standouty. That's
then you add
another
the
one.
wine. What's the new term?
standouty.
Standouty.
Yeah.
All right, we got a standouty. Wow, that blue cheese.
I just want, you know
Just
what? I'm going
rocks
to
it.
grab a thing of blue cheese
It just rocks it.
and a bottle of this wine.
Yeah.
And I'm going home tonight.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's dinner. That's dinner. Wow.
That's really special.
Who knew that
I'm gonna try
blue cheese was
chocolate.
so awesome? Well,
I
think
never
it's
have.
No,
I've
it's just
skipped blue cheese my
It's
whole
this
life
Vermont, whatever
until
they-
that stuff.
Yeah, they've
How about
got-
the nuts?
I'm really looking forward to trying it out, but I'm trying chocolate right now. I do love these Monday afternoons with you guys. It's so much fun to talk
Cheers.
about.
It's a Monday afternoon.
Cheers, everyone. It's so much fun to talk about wine, the big world of wine, all aspects of wine, while you're enjoying it with friends. I mean, that's how we got into this. That's exactly how Hermit Woods was born.
Right.
We found out
Yeah.
that each of us liked doing this. I mean, we were just riding mountain bikes and drinking beer together,
Now,
which was great. We liked doing that too. But when we discovered that we each other like wine, it opened up a whole new thing.
and now we get to talk about wine, enjoy it with some food, with all of our friends.
Right.
Yes.
Potentially hundreds
Yeah,
or
exactly.
thousands of them someday.
Exactly.
You never know.
Even Greg.
So cheers to all of you out there who
Cheers,
who
everyone.
join us every Monday. And
So what do you think of a nut with Deep Blue? Does that work at all?
Yeah, that's totally works.
I'm not as I didn't jump on it as quick as Chuck.
No,
I think it's
totally
more like the cheddar. It's more even to me. It's more. I found it more because the nuts got some tannins in it that I think.
Makes it more bitter.
Yeah.
It's the bitter thing. Remember, we've
Yeah.
tried this and it worked with the rosé.
Yeah.
I don't know what anything else that it's worked with so far.
But
you liked it with the port.
The reason why I jumped on that is that the nuts still maintain that really nice nutty character because it sort of goes along with the character of the nuttiness of the wine.
Try it with the 19, Bob.
And and I had it with the 17, which has a little bit more honey, a lot of sweet. So the nut maintain that flavor.
19. It goes really nicely with the 19.
And that bitterness stands out a little bit more, but I would expect that I want the nut to taste like something and be what it is. And these walnuts have a bit of bitterness.
I liked it with it.
But
I still feel the same way. My reason why is that I find at the end of this, what's left in my mouth is more nut than wine. And I really like the wine to be.
I do. I agree with you. I'm still tasting nut and not the wine.
Right. So the nuts kind of in some way
Whereas with
overpowering.
the blue cheese, it's
the two come together and they just
Yeah.
stay together it's just.
That's a good
well,
point.
all the nuts are for me.
Yeah.
So
How about the dark blueberries, the dried blueberries?
the dried blueberries. I think if you really chew on them for a while, then you really get the grippy tannins out of the dried blueberries and some of the flavor. Then take the wine into your mouth.
Gregory wants to know, are the barrels the same manufacturer, new, used, percentage?
Good question, Greg. I'd have to look up all the data on my phone. They're not for sure the same. This was a little small 77 liter, 20-gallon French oak barrel. These were in full-size Bordeaux barrels, 60 gallons, 225 liters. But I've got 50 barrels back there. I track all of them with all the wines, but it would be really rare for these to be in the same one. In fact, when the 15 was done, I didn't even have the barrels that the 19 is in, or the 17 for that matter. So the 19 is in barrel 31 and 32. So I didn't even have
These are
those.
not new. Well, these are all used.
Well, they're recoopered.
But you used them in first use?
Definitely not this one. On one of these, I
brand new barrel?
did use a brand new barrel
Wow.
for it.
I'm surprised we didn't pick that up.
I can look all that up.
Yeah.
I can send it to you. You can tack it on the back end of this.
Be
I
interested to
can
know.
put all
Yeah.
Question.
the details of the barrel aging of each one of these wines. That's great. That's a great question, Greg, because barrels, even if I buy a dozen barrels from the same manufacturer at the same time, and they ship those to us, they're all toasted the same level, and I put the same wine in all dozen barrels. There will be one or two barrels that either stand out better or worse than the rest of them. And there are differences between all of them. So it's kind of fun. 2 days ago, I had our new vintage of Petit Blue Reserve. And Melanie was sampling all 8 of them before we did some chromatography on them. And there's some of them that they're all about the same, slight differences, but there are a couple that stand out. They're just like, you just want to drink the whole thing right there. But that's a great question. So barrels really change the character of the wine, and they can be
And they're all different.
And they're all different.
Even if they're all the same, there's going to be a difference, is what you're saying. Yeah, I could get that.
This little barrel that's in is my favorite barrel. And I put so many wines to it, and it still keeps giving flavor and nuance and character to it.
Didn't your dad give you that barrel? In
He
the
did.
early days?
Yeah, I think that's the first barrel that we had, actually.
Yeah, that was the first real barrel that we had. Right now, there is a black raspberry elderberry port that's in that barrel.
Wow. Well, we should bring that barrel out.
That's a new one.
Is it really a port?
I'm fortifying it.
But it's
We
Well, we're not going to go there.
let's put it outside like trees and see what happens.
So finish off.
So what did you,
finish
before
off
you
the
go,
rubies.
what do you think of the berries, blueberries with it?
Kind of like what I had before. Is it adds sort of a tannic structure and a little bit more complexity to the flavor of the blueberry wine.
Mhm.
So I think it enhances the wine, but it doesn't. It's not like the blue cheese experience. There's
Exactly.
there's no
It
fat, there's no
disappears.
oils. It doesn't like create a new experience in my mouth.
Right, I agree.
That's
I
what it was
felt
for
like
me.
the blueberries were saying, "Oh, this feels so good." The soak in this really delicious blueberry-rich sweetness.
Jesus.
He's into the mind.
Where did he come
from? Did you start drinking before you got
You
here?
need more port.
I've been driving all day. So no, so for me,
You
I don't-
came from Manhattan to do this,
I
didn't
did,
you?
yeah. So
Yeah.
the for me, the blueberries are kind of a strange thing to be having with this. Just I don't. It's weird, but I thought that the blueberries tasted really good and better than they have tasted with anything else that we've had it with, because they're what the wine is made of. So they just tasted like really sweet blueberries.
He'll keep talking and we'll get to drink this one.
Yeah. Well,
You need to
somebody's
finish your
gotta
19.
talk. My 19.
Okay.
Somebody's got to do it.
Because
Did you guys try? Did you try the chocolate?
Do you have any questions?
There's no
No
questions.
questions?
They're all drinking port.
Everybody's.
Where's all the questions? There hasn't been a lot of questions today. I don't know. Maybe we just covering all the bases.
Maybe port's a foreign world for them.
Yeah. Did you guys try the chocolate with the ports? Did we talk about that at all?
Yeah.
I do like the chocolate. I tried a very plain, dark chocolate.
Yep.
Which I thought was really nice. I had it with the 15. So
let's.
The chocolate's a no-brainer.
So this is a 10-year-old tawny port by Taylor, and well regarded, easily accessible. They go global with this stuff.
They're one of
Really
the first.
classic.
They're one of the first
Port makers
port
around.
houses in Porto, Portugal. I watched a video. They've been around for hundreds of years. Since I think.
And they're English, interestingly.
Yes.
Almost all of the.
A lot of these are
wineries
British. Yeah,
are
they started by the British.
Yep.
Because the British
Does it give
and
a
the
date?
French were
A
having
founding date?
comeuppance.
They might, but I can't.
And so a lot of the Brits went to Porto and were a big part of making this wine global. But there's all very Ferrari, I can never pronounce it, it's in Portuguese. There's like one or two that are still true owned Portuguese wineries.
Established in 1692. Wow.
Yeah. It's a beautiful winery too.
Wow.
I would recommend wandering up there. And what's great about wandering to these wineries, Sandeman's and Taylor, is that you can do vertical tastings there. It's expensive, but when in your life are you going to have the opportunity to try, barrel aged ports?
Are you saying you spent a little money while you were there?
Yeah, it was very expensive, honestly. It hurt, but the thing is that this is
So
this
port's
is the
got
place.
something going on.
Yeah, this is the place you can go and have a great wine experience with a unique, really flavorful, rich.
Well, good for them.
Yeah,
I mean, in
no, it's
16,
great.
in the
It's beautiful.
1690s, they
Yeah.
weren't thinking about that. They were thinking about fortifying some wine that tasted good and to figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
There's no roadmap.
And
There was no roadmap.
the percentage of businesses that are able to survive for 400 years.
Yeah.
It's really small.
Yeah.
Really, really small.
Yeah.
Wonder what we're going to look like in 400 years.
I don't know.
Now, I know what I'm going to look like in 400 years. But I wonder
I
how
know what
it
you're
works.
gonna look like in 4 years.
Pile of ashes.
It's Bobbin, 400 years.
So-
No, maybe 4 years.
Well, yeah, wine is a preservative.
So there's a
What do you
little color difference here,
Yeah.
right?
It's more like the 13.
Yeah.
It's really, look at
Well,
that.
that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to try this tawny. So this is a 10-year. This is an 8-year now, if you will. But it wasn't 8 years in barrel.
No.
It's just 15 months in barrel, but it's been in bottle ever since. And like Chuck pointed out, lower alcohol. It has evolved in the bottle. Oh, I get more alcohol on the Taylor port for sure.
Much higher.
A lot more alcohol.
Yeah.
Almost too much. On the
I like the balance of our deep blue.
yeah. I found that the nose
is a little
too
overpowered
hot.
by the alcohol.
Yeah.
These are not the right glasses.
I was just going to say,
we should have a smaller glass.
what is a port glass?
It's usually a smaller tulip or a regular bowl-shaped glass. You usually pour 2 or 3 ounces.
Yeah. So that might have helped with the nose.
So this is a big red wine
Yeah.
So it's
glass.
going to concentrate the
all the
alcohol.
alcohol.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
think
a little
I
unfair
think
there.
it's an apt comparison between the two, though. I mean, there's certainly a deep blue is not a port because certainly it can't be. It's not made like a port because we don't fortify it. But it is, as a matter of flavor profile, meeting your goals to come up with that rich, complex, flavorful, fruit-forward, rich, ripe fruit flavors. It's really a cool comparison.
And to reinforce that point, I tried the blue cheese with this. It's
Delicious.
spot on,
Yeah.
just like the other one. Just a nice, it marries those. I'm not kidding. I'm going to bring a bottle of that home with a chunk of blue cheese. Chunk of blue cheese. That's it. I'm going to have it for dessert. I wonder how it goes with chocolate.
I'm putting some chocolate here.
Yeah.
Dark chocolate. Now.
Which is great. We're having after dinner drinks before dinner.
That's because we're in the business.
There was a phrase my kids liked in high school. Life is uncertain. Eat dessert first. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
So that chocolate's got raisins in it.
Yeah. I don't like the raisin one as much.
No,
Yeah, I like the dark chocolate better.
it creates a hollow sort of
Yeah.
feeling in my mouth. There's something doesn't work with that.
Almost, for some
I'm
reason,
gonna try these dried blueberries with
Matt.
the Taylor.
Oh, the Taylor. So the blueberries ought to get lost in this because they're not jumping into blueberry juice.
Right, they're jumping into grape
Yeah, let's
juice.
try that.
Matt suggests using a whiskey glass for his port.
That's a good idea.
Good suggestion, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this glass is just funneling the alcohol right up the nose.
Marika corrected me. Not raisins, cherries, dried cherries. Thank you, Marika. Marika, by the way, is upstairs,
Not at all.
right upstairs there,
Dried cherries.
taking
Those are
care
dried-
of
those are dried
taking care of you
cherries.
folks
Dried
who are out there enjoying wine
Dried
today.
cherries and this chocolate.
Oh, and the chocolate.
Well, we
Oh,
just had a dried blueberries.
Yeah, they don't go well with the
It's kind of weird, isn't
That's
it?
totally weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't try this at home, folks. Dried blueberries and 10-year-old.
But what did you find about the blueberries? No good.
Yeah.
Strange.
So-
Yeah, see what you think.
It's strange. The blueberries really like to jump into a glass of Deep Blue Reserve and hydrate a little bit and
Mhm.
become the blueberry that they were with all that sweetness and richness and funniness and whatnot. As a matter of tawny port, I think from what I learned in Portugal, my favorite was always a 20-year-old. If you want to spend the money, it's probably 50% more than a 10-year-old. The 10-year-old's good. The 20-year-old was like at the peak. The 30-year-old wasn't that much better than the 20-year-old. The 40-year-old tawny was not much better than the 20-year-old.
I almost picked up a 20 for today. Maybe I should have.
Yeah, well, I don't think. Well, there's a bigger difference between 10 and 20.
I was
In the
just
same- the same
thinking more
ratio.
like this was an 8-year wine, so I was
Yeah.
thinking
No,
that
I think
maybe
that actually you pretty much got it exactly right because I thought that 10-year and the 2013 Deep Blue Reserve were a great comparison. They
so that's
feel like
what I
they're the
wanted
same
to do.
sort
I
of-
wanted to
sort
see.
of age range.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we've never done this before. We've never done these side by
Well,
side. I mean,
no,
we've
this is
tasted
very
these things.
educational.
When we planned this out earlier today and scripted the whole thing, it's filled up the teleprompter with our lines. Oh, no, wait a minute. We didn't do
So-
any of that.
I wanted to let you guys know, about 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, I had a chance to buy through Garagis, a great source for finding really
I
interesting
almost
wines.
got him to bring that over today, but he knew that we were
It
going to
would,
get him drunk.
it'd be
and we
trouble.
were going to get him to
I
open
knew, yeah. So I bought it's a
vintage port.
yeah, but it's a what is it?
Magnum?
Magnum.
Wow.
It's a magnum of vintage port that I bought in 2011 or 12,
What that set you back?
and quite a bit. But it's a vintage port shouldn't be open for 30 years.
I thought you said 20.
No, it's 30. I think it's 30.
30?
I'm gonna have to do some
You're not gonna
research.
be alive?
Well, it's 30 years from when he bought.
So this is incentive, guys.
30
Take
Take
bucks.
good
That's
care
20
of
years from
yourself.
now.
Take good care of yourself, because this bottle's going to be around.
Does that mean having more preservatives in my body? Like,
Yeah, because I'm holding out,
See, if
and
he
you
brought
know,
that, we would have had it open.
you know that I can.
I know you can.
well, you're right to wait on it because the experience at 30 years is just going to be exponentially.
That's what I'm told. And when the company that I bought it from told me to wait, so I'm going to wait.
Yeah. So, well, okay. So cheers, everybody. We'll be here in 30 years to open that bottle.
Where will you be?
It's right here.
No, I was asking them.
I'm going to be right here. You'll find me here. Hey, if any of you out there
Yeah.
are still in touch with us in 20
30.
years from now, not 30, because it's already been 10. So in
Oh, we only have 20 years.
20
from now.
years,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
20.
easy. Now I have something
Piece
to
of
live
cake.
for.
Piece
Yeah.
of cake.
I'll raise them to
So if anybody's out there
Yeah.
who's still around,
We'll be out
you
skiing.
can count on it. We will make this opportunity
We will
available.
open it?
Yeah, and we'll share it
We
with
should
our
mark
friends.
the date 20 years from today.
We should. Our
Okay.
20-year anniversary. That's it. This is our
That's
10-year
our
anniversary.
10-year
We're coming
You're
up
talking about our 30-year
in
anniversary.
June. We're coming up on our 10-year anniversary. So on our 30th anniversary,
On our
that
30th
is when
on our
we are going to
30th
open a
anniversary.
vintage port. And whoever out there is still with us at that time and remembers this conversation, you will be invited to sample.
You think he's
With
going to
us.
remember?
Oh, come. Yeah. Well, you.
No,
Does Google Calendar go that far
I'm-
forward? Because you could put
I'm
it
gonna
your-
put it in
you
the
could put
calendar.
your Google
Yeah.
Calendar.
I'm going to do
If you're
that.
still
Future.
alive and you show up,
Your future
So-
self.
you can join us.
So that's a good ending note, because
Yeah.
we're at
We are-
5:06.
Yes. we've
It's
been-
time to
we've been
go.
Rambling for a long
We've been
time.
rambling for a long time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Once again, always, it's such a pleasure to be able to do this together amongst ourselves, but it's really a joy to share it with you. I hope you get as much enjoyment out of it as we do. I hope you remember to bring your own beverages to enjoy while you're
Hey,
while
what's
you're watching
happening
our
next
show.
Monday?
Next Monday. Thank you. That's a great
What's happening
segue.
next Monday?
If any of you are familiar with Flag Hill, Brian Ferguson is the I say new owner. He's been
We
there
get
for
to drink
5 or
some
6 years. So Brian Ferguson is going to be joining us next Monday from 4 to 5, and we're going to get to
Remotely,
sample
right?
some remotely. Yes, we'll sample some of his products, learn a little bit about his background and how he came to be at Flag Hill. And so stay tuned for next Monday and meet Brian Ferguson, the owner of Flag
Amazing
Hill
guy.
Winery. Really cool guy. You'll enjoy hearing from him, I'm sure. So thank you, everybody, for being with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you
Cheers, everyone.
in the very near future. So cheers.
On the moon.
And here we go.